who else is doing it remotely?
You know, yeah,
Looks like Mark and Todd and Liam, yourself, Diana, are all remotely, plus several other citizens have called in.
Ready to get started? All right, I'd like to call to order the April 23rd, 2020 Watertown City Board of Adjustment meeting. Can I get a roll call?
Hanson,
Here.
Dolly,
Here.
Dargis Johnson,
here.
Kays,
Here.
Culhane,
Here.
Stein, Ford.
Here.
So Stein is absent.
Stein is online, Jill.
Okay.
It looks like his mic is muted.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
There he is.
Okay. Stein is present.
Perfect, thank you. Moving on to item 3 on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. I'll need a motion for approval.
If we can postpone the minutes till next time, they weren't done.
Okay. I will move on to item 4, the conditional use request number 20096. Jill?
Okay. Let me bring up the area here. The owner applicant is Joe Kalhoff. The property address is 317 First Avenue Southeast. This is a conditional use request. The applicant seeks approval to construct a 3,290 square foot building in the C1 Community Commercial and Downtown Overlay Districts to be used for contractor shops and storage units pursuant to 21, 2403, 11, and 12 of the zoning ordinance, contingent upon compliance with specific rules governing individual conditional uses. Staff finds that storage units is a listed conditional use for the C1 Community Commercial District, and storage units are by definition a building or buildings for the storage of commercial or private goods and materials in individual units within a common structure without water or sewer utilities. And contractor shops and storage yards is also a listed conditional use for the C1 Community Commercial District. And by definition, contractor shops and storage yards is a use of land or buildings for storage and preparation of materials used by that same individual in conducting business, including but not limited to construction, repair work, fabrication, and assembly, and incidental retail sales. Each unit shall have separate water and sewer utilities. So these two uses are opposite in the sewer and water utilities issue. This bare lot is a proposed redevelopment project in downtown Watertown. The applicant submitted the attached written request, site plan, and floor plan, which reflect compliance or non-compliance with the following terms of the ordinance. 210202 2B7A through H is specific rules governing individual uses, and this board is tasked with finding compliance with things like ingress, egress, off-street parking, loading, screening, buffering, signage, exterior lighting, required yards and open space, and general compatibility. They're also to look at Chapter 2156, the purpose and intent of the Downtown Overlay District, which has 5 specific provisions. Chapter 2163, off-street parking and loading requirements, needs to be reviewed. 2165, outside storage and display requirements for commercial uses. This is allowed outside storage being a commercial use. Landscape and lighting standards per Chapter 2173. Of note, this property is not exempt from the landscape and lighting standards, as the grass boulevard has been and is currently in compliance with 217302 1II. And Title 24 subdivision of land. The parcel is a legally described subdivision of a platted lot. It complies with the new C1 area and width requirements, but has not been replatted. So this board must consider if satisfactory provision and arrangement has been made concerning 210202 2B7A through H in the chapters and titles just listed. If generally endorsed, the conditions of approval, such as parking, loading, outside storage, if there are any, must be specified, as a building permit may be issued upon compliant application without return to this board.
Thank you, Joe. Go ahead and open the public hearing. If there's anybody here to speak on behalf or against, make sure to state your name. Joe, can you pull up the file on this one and show in relation to the downtown overlay district, which was a new overlay district that was just recently passed and fleshed out to, what the intentions of this district needs to be, conducive to both uses and, appearance, and how the downtown district is going to redevelop over time. This particular property then falls within that district. It looks like it's right on the edge, but it's still within the overlay.
Correct. It's right here on the edge, this little area here, if you can see that. Did you want me to read the purpose and intent of the downtown overlay district, or?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Case.
I'm curious. I'm a technological novice, but I'm curious. Jill, is there any way you can share your screen?
Yes.
This is my.
Yeah, I'll do it.
If you can't get it up through there, Pete, I can share mine. I've got my ArcMap up as well.
It would be nice. That way we could see what she's talking about.
Yep, we're getting it here.
All right, I think it should be coming through here now in just a moment.
Thank you.
Jill, would you mind reading that?
Yes, the purpose and the intent of the downtown overlay district. There are 5 points here. Number 1 is to promote development of a compact pedestrian-oriented downtown consisting of high-intensity employment center, vibrant and dynamic mixed-use area, and residential living environments that provide a broad range of housing types for an array of housing needs. Number 2 is promote a diverse mix of residential, business, commercial, office, institutional, educational, cultural, and entertainment activities for workers, visitors, and residents. Number 3 is encourage pedestrian-oriented development within walking distance. Number 4 is create a place that represents a unique, attractive, and memorable destination for visitors and residents. And number 5 is enhance the community's character through the promotion of high-quality urban design and historical preservation.
Thank you, Joe. And along with that, in the overlay district, there was also some aesthetic requirements for buildings, some limitations on the construction and styling of the facilities. We're getting a little bit of feedback here. Okay, perfect, thank you. In relation to that, I didn't see a proposed building plan addressing those factors, but I also do not see any request for variance from those particular requirements. Has that been addressed?
I believe Mr. Kalhoff is just looking for the use to see if it would be allowed, and then he would, give us a more specific idea of what he wants to do for the aesthetics. And if any didn't comply, he would have to come back to the board for the building permit to ask variance from those conditions.
And now, if you pull up the actual site plan for the facility, or the construction drawing, I guess, showing the interior as well, looks like this is actually 5 garage bays, 5 overhead doors proposed in the structure.
It looks like there's 3 overhead garage doors to the south here, and he's looking to be approximately 2 feet off the property line with the building, as you can see here, 2.5. It's a 47 by 70 building, and then the floor plan shows the one thing that came out, popped out to me was the fact that the bathrooms, the storage areas have access to bathrooms, which by ordinance, they're not supposed to have sewer water utilities for storage. That's a bit of a gray area here, I think, because the storage could be used for the contractor's shop, but if he were to rent it out or something,
If they were sublet it out.
sublet it.
And then as far as that setback requirement goes, that meets any requirements for the district?
The C1 district it has 0 setbacks except for towards residential uses or zones.
So how far away from the existing house would this be?
It appears that that house is maybe, I don't know, it's maybe 5 feet off the property line, and then he would be another 2.5.
So there may be some firewall requirements depending on the building code there and the distance between the structures.
If need be, there.
Jill, Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Jill, what is the proposed height of the structure?
He does not indicate a height, but on the floor plan, it does look like there's stairs going up to something. I suspect it's more of a 1.5-story type situation, maybe storage in this peaked roof area.
So sidewall height of what?
Sidewall in the C1 can go like 3 stories.
Yeah. What is it? I think it's 60 feet.
I think it's 60 feet or so, yeah.
I just guess the question I'm having right here is that being that there's a residential use adjacent to it, 7 feet, and even if I go 1.5 stories, I'm running, say I'm running even 12 or 16-foot sidewalls, that's going to cast a shadow, or at least there's going to be, it's going to be right on top of that house.
Yeah, and this is Chip with the fire department. I am a little concerned with setbacks. I know we don't have any. I know it's within code, but we have residential use. We're 7 feet from structures. If there's something how we could make that a little safer requirement, just throwing that thought out there.
And this is
Jill? Does he not say in his letter that he submitted that he hopes at some point to make that upstairs livable space?
He did in his letter. When he submitted his letter, we did have conversations with him after that as to the uses, and he's not wanting to mix uses now. That is not in this game plan.
All right, thank you.
Jill, this is Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Jill, has adjoining property owners reached out to you at all?
I did have one adjacent property owner get a hold of me, Mrs. Johnson, and she is not favorable to this situation.
Where does she live in relation to the proposed?
Okay. I believe she is right in this building here. Mrs. Larry Johnson. Can you see that? Right in this building to the northeast.
Is that showing up okay, Todd, on the screen share?
Looks like you're muted, Todd. Yeah, I'm seeing it on my screen.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, is that an apartment or a duplex?
Well, she owns it, Mrs. Larry Johnson.
Who owns the property immediately to the east of the proposal?
This is Preferred Properties, Inc. I think it's a duplex.
Okay, and they had no comment?
I didn't hear from them.
This is Brandy.
Jill,
So
I know, I
just-
think I had talked to you once. There is a section of the ordinance that talks about a separation between commercial uses and residential zones. Is that correct?
Yes, well, the ordinance, there is a table for setbacks for the different zone, whether it's residential or non-residential. And in the table, it says that the side setback for the C1 zone shall be 0 to 30 feet, depending on whether it's next to R for residential. Now, it does not specify whether that's zone or use, but I believe staff has been thinking that it's the zone.
But that could be something the Board of Adjustment can make a determination on.
I would think so.
Now,
Is,
so this is,
is the staff attorney present?
I don't,
I don't think he is. I don't think Matt is on, is he?
so
The board
this
has
is,
the ability, Mr. Chair, does the board have the ability to make interpretations of the ordinance?
I would say yes.
And in this situation, we have the letter R. Jill, could you pull that section of the ordinance up, please?
and this is Brandy. If I could just add something, you know, with it saying R, and I would believe that it was referring to a district because those apartment houses are actually legal non-conforming. They've been grandfathered in, but they are zoned C1. So in that situation, they are actually, the use that they have is not permitted in the district. So it's more so like, would we rather these areas rezone, or would we like them to be more commercial in nature as they continue? And if they come in and things would change, that they would have to adhere to the C1 district.
Well,
It's either that or you could add those uses to as a conditional use in the residential zone, those that were existing prior to
They-
C1.
And they are conditional uses. You can have apartments as a conditional use in the C1 zone.
So how are they non-conforming?
Because they don't have a conditional use, I'd imagine. So if things were to change in the future, that then they would have to get a conditional use.
They don't have a permit issued by the city, but the use itself is allowable as a conditional use.
Yes.
Except for a single-family dwelling is not allowed in the C1.
Right.
But this is a duplex.
I don't know if it
Well,
is
and
either.
it might even be a fourplex.
Well, the one immediately adjacent is a duplex to the east.
Yeah, so what is allowed by conditional use are apartment houses or apartments over 4 units using the upper floor of commercial buildings. And then a permitted use in the C1 are apartments up to and including 4 units using the upper floor of commercial buildings.
Could you zoom in that a little bit, please? So a duplex would meet the term of an apartment up to 4 units?
What they're doing is not allowable. It would have to become an apartment house by a conditional use. So basically, and that's where I don't think we should get hung up on that saying 30 feet adjacent to R, because the use isn't allowable in the district that they're in. So I don't think that it should deter somebody from using their property for a commercial use that is either allowed by permitted or conditional.
But I'm going to argue with you a little bit because I believe that the duplex was there is a vested non-conforming use only because it doesn't have a permit, which is an administrative act that could be done relatively easy. So the use itself would not be denied because it's generally compatible with everything in the district. So I think yes, they do have kind of dibs.
Yeah, but I don't think that we should have a 30-foot side yard setback because they're adjacent to residential. I think that that's only talking
I didn't
about
suggest,
districts.
I did not suggest a 30-foot setback. I think we do need to talk about the height of the building adjacent in close proximity to a residential structure. 7 feet is I think a little tight. That's all I'm saying.
I guess my concern comes in more so on the uptown or overlay that we just,
And
Created.
specifically, the request here is really about the conditional use. Is contractor shop an intended conditional use for this specific overlay district?
I agree with you, Rhonda. That's a concern that I have also.
Well, and so being that we just implemented the downtown aesthetics district overlay, we'll look at that and make sure that he's adhering to that ordinance. And then, but it's more so just if he can make a contractor shop look how we want it to in the downtown area, then that will be fine. And if he is not able to meet that, like Jill had said, then he would have to come back for a variance.
And Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Heath Bond, I would just go back and echo the statement you just made. I think that really this application at the heart of it is exactly what you just cited: is this use appropriate in this zone, on this lot, in this overlay district as a conditional use? And I think the rest of those criteria, the other overlay districts, the aesthetics, and things of that nature would absolutely have to be ironed out with the subsequent building permit application that would come if this were to be approved.
I guess getting back to that, looking at his drawing here, it shows 2 feet before when you back out of those contractor shops onto First Avenue, you've got 2 feet before you're backing into a sidewalk. Well, if you have somebody coming by on a bike or walking, and that's what we're trying to develop in this area, you can't even see if they're coming around the corner because you're still inside the building. So I guess I have a real issue with that because, again, if we're promoting walking and biking, you're not going to be able to see that pedestrian coming from there.
There's also 2 overhead doors here on the alley also.
Right.
For the storage.
And again, that is the alley. That's maybe a little different. I see that maybe as a little different, but when you're directly backing onto the sidewalk, that's where I think that's just a hazard.
And Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if I could speak to that point, that was also discussed at the staffing level in review of this application. And our recommendation from a traffic safety and pedestrian safety standpoint is if the board were to entertain approving this conditional use, we would recommend seeing that setback along First Avenue South be required to be set in because of those 3 garage doors that are being proposed there. We don't think it'd be safe to have those doors right on the edge of that sidewalk, just like what was described by one of the commissioners, and would agree that maximizing that setback would be appropriate. Now, I say maximizing it because we do have stipulations in this district that would allow it to only be up to 12 feet setback. That's the maximum setback in this district. And I think that would be adequate and appropriate as far as providing some cushion for pedestrian traffic and for the use of those garage doors. And again, that's all on the premise of this being approved as a conditional use.
Understood. Thank you.
Heath, Jason Hansen. So again, on this proposed 3 garage doors, was he going to be allowed to curb cut that whole length?
Good question, Commissioner Hansen. That also was discussed, and we do allow for up to, in our new engineering design standards we just adopted, we do allow up to a 36-foot access for a location such as this. So I think that we could accommodate that. The only issue is how that would tie into that alley approach. We would want to work with the applicant to make sure that the alley approach doesn't become all of one with their driveway, and have some kind of separation in there would be the minimum requirement I would expect.
I'm going to just remind everybody that the public hearing is open. I'll ask one more time if there's anybody here to speak on behalf or against before I close this.
Jill, can you show how far back those garages for the apartments sit back off of the alley? Please. So they have a little bit of a apron out in front of them.
I'll go ahead and close the public hearing as well.
It looks to be about 10 feet, maybe?
So I think, we'd have to allow at least 10 feet there as well, in my opinion, to, again, get the vehicle backed out safely.
Most of those structures on the alley, are they all in line or everything to the north there, or are they not?
Looks like that smaller garage is inset far there.
Correct.
This may just be a shed. Well, it's maybe a little too big for that, but.
And then obviously that other structure there, right to the north, has no access off the alley, off of Kemp. Correct.
That's probably right on the property line as C1 allows.
But again, no garage doors on the alley. I mean, it may be a walk-through door.
That's all offices in there.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am?
this was Diana. Back to when Rhonda mentioned the compatibility with the downtown overlay district, I also have a concern about just going back to 210202, the A through H, the H part, general compatibility with adjacent properties. And I guess being between two duplexes and essentially surrounded by living quarters and having contractor shops, I do have some concern about the general compatibility with those adjacent properties.
Yeah, and I think, generally in this district, we understand that there's going to be redevelopment, right? And that's to be expected. And so some of these uses will continue to be kind of mixed within the zone and mixed within adjacent areas as we redevelop it. But the question then, I think, is, what is that appropriate use for that particular lot? And is contractor shop specifically, is that the type of use that fits best for this neighborhood and this district?
Jill, is that property, if it was to be built as a single-family dwelling, does it fall into the compact? I mean, is there enough buildable space there even for a single-family residence there in today's?
Well, first of all, in the C1 zone, a single-family home is not allowed to be constructed. I guess that would be the main thing.
But if he were to rezone to residential, which would be kind of a tooth out of this zoning district, what is the square footage of that lot? Do you want to just click on it?
This lot is 3,900 square feet with a 47-foot frontage.
So yeah, he wouldn't even meet the requirements for an R2A, which is 6,000 square feet.
6,000.
And this is a property actually that we looked at specifically when we changed the ordinance for the C1 district and the minimum lot size requirement, because of these small parcels that are there, and then also that they have more buildable area because there is zero setback.
Jill, do you still have up the C1 district and the permitted uses?
Here is the C1 permitted uses, and here are the conditional uses. And for
Those permitted uses, as long as they met the overlay district requirements.